the Driving.ca, I'm Jay Canna, and I'm with the all-new 2024 GMC Acadia. For this generation, GMC has gone bigger and longer and stronger, so it's got more power, it's longer, it's taller, there's a long list of standard safety features, and there's a pretty heavy digital presence as well. In this video, we'll go through everything that's new and exciting, and all the things that matter to you, the consumer, and we'll see if the all-new GMC Acadia has what it takes to compete in this very crowded segment. The Acadia has downsized displacement but pumped up performance here for 2024. So here we have a 2.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine putting out 328 horsepower, 326 pound-feet of torque, all through an 8-speed automatic transmission. All-wheel drive does come standard. Previously, it was either the 3.6 V6 or the 2-point slow turbocharged 4-cylinder engine with a 9-speed automatic transmission. So I think the power bump was absolutely needed in the modernization of the Acadia. If you think these power figures are familiar, well, you're right. It's in the new Chevy Traverse, and it's also in the new Buick Enclave. The drawback here is there's no hybrid, no plug-in hybrid, and no EV, at least not yet. It is gas only. Now, the EV has a bit of an asterisk to it because we know that GM does have several EVs. So maybe not for this generation, but likely, hopefully, for the next generation, the Acadia will have some kind of alternate propulsion. The drive feel is very soft and plush, and it soaks up all of the imperfections on the road. And that's what GM/GMC vehicles are known for. It's not quite the full couch on wheels experience like the Buick Enclave provides, but it's a pretty close second. So driver and passengers will be rewarded with a very soft and smooth ride quality here in the 2024 GMC Acadia. The new Acadia is significantly larger than the outgoing model. It's nearly a foot longer and it's over 3 inches taller. And you'll notice that especially in urban conditions, whether it be in parking lots, on side streets, whether you're doing public parking, forwards, reverse, or parallel. It's just something to be aware of as you do navigate the GMC Acadia. Even with the power bump, it feels a little sluggish to get going from a standstill, and I'm not expecting it to be lightning fast or have agile handling, but I would have liked to have felt a little more oomph off the line to accurately reflect 326 pound-feet of torque. Now, the vehicle is almost 5,000 pounds, so my expectations are realistic, but that's just me in the vehicle, right? Imagine having, 3, 4, 5 passengers, plus you're towing something as well. It's just something to be aware of, that if you're okay with something a little slower off the line in exchange for that nice, soft and cushy ride feel, the Acadia might be right for you. A drawback for me is the engine noise, and it's particularly intrusive at lower speeds and as you run up and down those 8 gears. Once you're at cruising speeds, it settles down, it's fairly quiet, but in going through gears 1, 2, 3, 4, you really hear it, you really do feel it. But that's part of the trade-off when you go for a smaller displacement engine that has to work harder and produce more power. I'll give you a quick audio test. So yeah, it's a little loud, and sometimes it takes a little longer to shuffle through those gears. Going up from 40 up to 70, it really hung on to that gear, and my revs hit 4,000. So not going to be the case every single time, but just something to be aware of as you do your research for a new vehicle. There is an optional Denali Reserve package, and that gets you a performance suspension as well as 22-inch wheels. Goes for in and around $2,000. I don't know if you really need it. I think just having the regular suspension out of the box will do you just fine. Finally, on the fuel consumption side, Natural Resources Canada rates the 2024 GMC Acadia across all trims at 11.3 liters used per 100 kilometers driven. Moving on to the interior, let's start from the rear and work our way forward. So on the cargo side of things, I'll give you some numbers, and then I'll give you some additional numbers, which are pretty impressive. So behind the third row, we have 651 liters of cargo space. Behind the second row, 1,622. And finally, with second and third rows folded down behind the first row, it's a whopping 2,761. Now, the impressive part of this is between last generations and this generation's, GMC says there is nearly 80% more cargo space behind the third row, 36% more behind the second row, and 23% behind the first row. So that goes hand in hand with the vehicle being taller as well as nearly a foot longer. Top trim Denali does get power folding third row seats, whereas the other two trims, the Elevation and the AT4, do not. It's a 2-2-3 seating configuration here in the Acadia, meaning you can only get 7 seats. You cannot get a bench seat for the second row, meaning that I would not put someone in that middle seat in the third row for a second longer than I had to. Yes, the seats are fairly comfortable and there's a decent amount of head space as well as knee space, which is better than most as far as mid-size through-row crossovers go. Moving up to the second row with those captain's chairs, the knee space is pretty good, so is the head space and the shoulder space. Now, the benefit of having only captain's chairs in the second row is it makes getting into the third row a lot easier. You can just walk through that center pass-through as opposed to having to fold the seat down every single time. A bit of a drawback here, not only being able to seat 7 instead of 8 as some competitors do, there's no center console available for storage, so things might end up on the floor and you don't enjoy as much of the cubby storage and multitudes of storage for that matter that you would in some of the competitors. You can opt for a large panoramic sunroof, and yes, the roof liner is a light color. Yes, it's a fairly large vehicle, but just having that natural light pour through really gives it that extra bit of openness and airiness that your passengers will absolutely appreciate. If you do opt for the panoramic sunroof, your third row passengers don't enjoy the benefits of it, but the side windows are fairly large so they don't feel too closed in. Moving and adjusting the second row of seats is fairly easy, which scores big points for me. The last thing I want to do is be mucking around and figuring out which button does what and why isn't this going. If I want the seat folded to get someone into that third row, or I need the extra storage space, I want it to be as easy as possible. And here, the Acadia does that. Let's touch on the standard features before we jump into the first row of seats. 12-speaker audio system comes standard, as does a heated steering wheel, a 360-cam remote start, wireless charging, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, as well as heated front seats. You can get them ventilated, you can get the second row of seats heated as well, but again, not standard. Up to the first row, and the star of the show here is this massive 15-inch standard infotainment screen. It's fairly easy to use, and to me, it's one of the better ones. What contributes to that is there are still physical buttons. Not too many, there's a little bit for your HVAC down at the bottom, as far as putting it on, adjusting your temperature and the fan speed. There's a decent sized volume dial. It's a little shallow, so you really got to get your fingertips in there to adjust it. But as far as the layout goes, pretty intuitive, and I applaud GMC for that. It's so easy just to slap a screen somewhere, make it oversized, but have it really difficult to navigate and bury things in menus upon menus upon menus. But the Acadia has a pretty respectable system, and some of it's customizable. You can adjust your shortcuts. Now, there's a little bit of over-reliance on it. For example, if I wanted to turn off my lane centering, it's a two-touch thing through the screen. It does still have some finicky bits to it. So for example, on the bottom left, if I touch my lane keep assist to put it off, it makes me touch it again to put it off. Maybe that's just a foolproof way of saying, you think you may have touched it by accident, but are you really sure? And your headlights are controlled through there as well. A bit of a miss there. I would have liked to have seen something physical. Peculiar move here is that there's a panel of buttons to the left of the steering wheel, and one of those buttons control your drive modes. But once you start pushing that and changing drive modes, the drive mode itself shows up in the infotainment screen as opposed to in front of you on your 11-inch digital instrument cluster. And my eyes are going left to make sure I'm pushing the right button, then all the way to the right to find out what drive mode I'm in. I would have liked to have seen just everything be on that 11-inch digital instrument cluster as far as drive modes go. The 2024 Acadia boasts up to 9 different camera angles. Definitely good with a vehicle this size to always know what's around you. Not a shot against the Acadia at all, but with a larger vehicle, it can be a little challenging to park at times. The 11-inch instrument cluster scores high marks for me because I can see everything on that screen through the steering wheel. There's no piece that is unseen at all. It's got a couple of customizable options. The one I pick is with the speedometer dead center and the RPMs as a gauge surrounding it. Again, very easy to use, and that's the important thing. Another oddity is the gear lever, which is a stock off the steering wheel. It's park, reverse, neutral, drive, but there is a low gear, but the button for the low gear is on the steering wheel, which makes things a little on the interesting side. So you've got to use your thumb to change the gear and then control it as you will, and then push that button again to get out of it. The seats up front are extremely comfortable. I would absolutely do longer road trips in this. There's some nice premium finishes here in the Denali trim, and it's a wide feeling. I don't feel cramped in at all. And yes, I know it's not quite a full size, but it's a feeling of much more than a mid-size through a crossover here. So it's something that nice width both for myself and my front passenger, plus my second row passengers. It really gives that nice open and airy feeling. With having 3 seats in the third row and the potential of having them all filled, rearward visibility can suffer a little bit, but thankfully there's a digital rearview mirror. The drawback is that it's not standard fare. The wireless charging tray does come with a sliding cover, so it helps your phone from sliding around all over the place. There's a decent amount of storage in the center console, and just beneath your cup holders and wireless charger, there's also some bonus storage as well. Last note on the interior is that your hazard lights are up in the roof liner by your dome lights as opposed to being somewhere on the infotainment system area. I think they should have made space to make it a physical button down in your immediate line of sight because, well, if you break down or whatever reason you need to use your 4-way flashers / hazards, it shouldn't be somewhere that's not entirely obvious. Super Cruise is now available on the Acadia, so if you are doing a lot of longer drives, lots of road trips, absolutely consider that. To me, it's the best system in its class. It's just so intuitive and responsive, and it does everything as advertised, whereas some of the other ones are a little bouncy, a little not Super Cruise. There's an extensive list of standard safety features, and some of the highlights include forward collision avoidance, rear automatic braking, automatic emergency braking, lane keep assist, lane departure warning, high beam assist, and plenty of others. So good job on you, GMC, for making all of these features, plus a lot more standard fare, instead of nickel and diming us into getting standard safety features. Let's wrap things up with pricing and competition. So there are 3 trims. I call them regular, rugged, and regal. GMC calls them the Elevation, the AT4, and the top trim Denali here. So the Elevation MSRP comes in at $52,499. The AT4 comes in at $57,999, and the top trim Denali comes in at $64,499. Quick touch on the AT4, it's an inch taller, it's got a bit of a wider track, it comes with 18-inch all-terrain tires and an off-road tuned suspension. So again, that's the rugged trim if that's what you're looking for in a vehicle in this class. As far as trim splits go, GMC is anticipating around 50% to pick up the Elevation trim, 20% for the AT4, and the final 30% to be taken up by the top trim Denali. And all vehicles do have the $2,000 destination fee over and above the prices I mentioned. There's a lot of competition here with nearly every manufacturer having something to offer in this segment. What I think would compete most closely here is the Chevrolet Traverse, the Buick Enclave, Ford Explorer, Toyota Grand Highlander, and the Volkswagen Atlas. And there's still the Honda Pilot, Jeep Grand Cherokee, Kia Telluride, Hyundai Palisade, Mazda CX-90, Subaru Ascent, Nissan Pathfinder, and on and on and on. But if you're looking for things that are very similarly aligned here to the GMC Acadia, I would put the Traverse first, followed by the Explorer, Grand Highlander, and then Atlas. GMC Acadia does a lot of things well. Specifically, the added size will make it a lot more appealing to families who are looking for something a little larger in this 3-row mid-size segment. There is a great amount of power here, not just for daily driving, but if you are looking at towing / hauling things with you, or you happen to have a full carload every time you're in motion. Also, the technology is pretty stellar here. That 15-inch screen is fairly easy to navigate, and there's a nice balance of hard touch buttons as well. Where the GMC Acadia could use some improvement is having an an alternative propulsion system, whether it's a hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or a fully electric option. And finally, the engine's a little on the noisy side, a little on the intrusive side, and I would have expected something a little more refined for an all-new generation. If you have any questions on the 2024 GMC Acadia, let us know in the comments. We are always happy to engage in respectful conversation. We invite you to visit us on our social media platforms, specifically TikTok and YouTube. And for more news, reviews, and information you can use on mid-size three-row crossovers, visit our website, which is Driving.ca. For Driving.ca, I'm Jay Canna.